Wife!
What are we doing today?
Well, we're a little bit late. It is a Sunday, but we are doing our
Q&A, not on Saturday.
Which, what are we covering today?
We are covering Daniel, chapters 6 through 10.
Okay, all right. Which there was some crazy shit this week.
There was some crazy shit.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So, do you want to just hop in, or do you have anything to say about the upcoming craziness?
Let's just hop in.
Okay. All right. Well, you ready to do this?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Okie dokie. All right. Let's hop into this stupid book of Daniel.
Okay. Let's do it.
So we started with chapter 6 this last week.
We sure did.
And that was the last of the stories.
Right, where we're getting to know Daniel and his buddies. Yeah.
And he was thrown into that den of lions.
He sure was.
So, I mean, we didn't really have many questions. We were like, yep, that happened.
Right.
Whatever.
Other than why the fuck did they punish the people that got him thrown in there by killing their kids and wives as well?
But that's a question for God, not the Bible.
Or that king that did it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
But be that as it may, it's not a question that we have that can be answered through research.
No, I got you.
Right. So chapters 7, 8, and 9 are Daniel's visions, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And then chapter 10 starts his fourth vision.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because then 10, 11, and 12 cover his fourth vision.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about chapter 7, that first vision.
Well, before you do that, I do want to say about chapter 6 that just the amount of emphasis that is on that chapter with regard to Christianity and how Christians take that chapter is immense. Based on what I read, it's not really that, like, it didn't mean that much. Like, I was just blown away by how little. It wasn't
any different from any of his other 1 through 5 chapters to me.
Right. It's that overblown sense of this God is so fucking amazing. Can you see how fucking unbelievably amazing this God is? He's just crazy amazing. Yeah. And he does all these amazing things to this fictional guy, Daniel, that we made up 400 years later. It's amazing. Did you see how fucking amazing it is?
I was not impressed, so I did not think it was
Nor
amazing.
was I. But I thought it was worth calling out one last time how not amazing I was, or how not amazed I was by the things that happened in specifically that chapter and the rest of the introduction of Daniel.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it was just propaganda. It was bullshit. It was, holy crap, can you not see through the words that they're saying? This is ridiculous.
Read between the lines, my guys.
I just had to say something before we jumped ahead to the rest of the Q&A. So
I'm going to hop into chapter 7
Sorry.
now.
I just wanted to,
So chapter 7 was his first vision. Okay. And Daniel dreams of 4 beasts. Yeah. And we were pretty confused because there were horns and cities and kingdoms. And we were like, what? And then horns grew out of horns.
But just a bear.
A bear had ribs. And
why the fuck is there just a bear? Like, the rest of them have all these special parts, but then there's just a bear.
Right. So that was weird. It was weird. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to read you some of my further notes on chapter 7. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I didn't really have specific questions and specific answers for these. I had some, can you fucking explain this whole thing to me?
Yeah. Well, I think that's more what we need to cover because it was so confusing all the way through with regard to the symbolism that they're using that might have been more prevalent back when they wrote it, but now it's hard to distinguish what they're talking about.
Right. So. Yeah. The symbology kind of got lost over the, centuries, millennia. Yeah. Okay. So in the previous chapters, 1 through 6, Daniel told some stories about himself and his fellow captives, Daniel and co.
Right.
And he gave examples of him being able to interpret the dreams of others.
Right.
Right. So that was kind of a setup for where we are now, where Daniel begins to detail his own dreams and visions.
So they're trying to give him some, like, a resume.
Yeah.
They're building him a resume. Like, hey, this guy can interpret these guys' dreams. So obviously when he interprets his own dreams, it's going to be correct as well.
Right. You're supposed to be able to trust and rely on him because he's proven himself.
Yeah.
Right? So now we're returning to a period prior to chapter 6, because remember, some of these are out of order.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So the 4 kingdoms represented in Daniel's vision, and we read some of this before, but it does bear repeating.
Yeah.
They're the same 4 kingdoms that were illustrated in chapter 2. Okay, the Chaldean or Babylonian kingdom, the Medo-Persian kingdom, the Macedonian or Grecian kingdom, and the Roman kingdom.
Got it.
Okay?
Yeah.
There's a difference in the emphasis, though, between when we talked about those 4 kingdoms in chapter 2 versus where we're talking about them now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The vision given to King Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 2 dealt in general with the historical significance of the events that were symbolized.
Got it.
Okay, just like the people in general.
Okay.
The vision given to Daniel in chapter 7 deals more with how these events are going to affect God's people.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the king was given a very cursory overview, and Daniel then has a vision.
The details.
Yeah. He gets a little bit more.
Right.
Okay. So let's talk about the 4 beasts a little bit better.
Okay.
Okay. So the first beast that was covered in verse 4. It says, the first was like a lion, and it had the wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground so that it stood on 2 feet like a human being.
Okay.
All right. Well, lions and eagles both were considered kings of their realms. Lion is the king of the forest, and the eagle is king of the sky. They thought. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So that's to show you how powerful these guys were. They were strong leaders and recognized as such.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So Babylon, the kingdom symbolized by this first beast, was proud, ruthless, and unconquerable at the beginning.
Sure.
The Babylonian Empire was the first world power that conquered Judah. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And, we didn't really say anything about that at the time, but it is a big deal. They were the first one that brought the entire kingdom to its knees.
It's true. That's true.
Later on, Babylon's cruel power softened and became more humane. And that's what we mean when we say its wings were torn off and it was lifted from the ground so that it stood like a human being.
Got it. Yeah.
So it became more human and less powerful, but it also became less strong.
Right.
And was able, as it became, quote unquote, more human, it became weaker and was able to be conquered by other kingdoms.
Sure.
Okay. But we'll talk about that in a minute.
I do want to stipulate one thing, because there is this whole relationship that that Israel has had with Egypt over the time that we've been reading the Bible. And so it's not that they weren't, I feel like they were kind of like they were part of Egypt, but not really.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, they were frenemies.
Yeah.
And we've discussed that before.
Well, and Egypt held some political influence in Israel as well. So it's not, they were standalone, but they also were influenced heavily by Egyptian power earlier on.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I mean, when it was safe to do so, Judah was trying to assert its own independence from Egypt.
Sure.
But when other kingdoms, such as Babylon, came along, then they were like, oh, fuck this. And sometimes they would turn to Egypt for help, and sometimes Egypt would extend a helping hand if it was safe to do so.
Right. Well, I guess I just wanted to point out that Egypt was a superpower that they had to deal with on a regular.
Yes.
Prior to being conquered officially by Babylon.
Right. It's just that Babylon was the first one that did not have an outside or background relationship with them, came in and kicked their fucking asses.
Right.
And we're like, and you're done.
Yep.
So that, again, bears stating specifically because it's a big deal.
Yeah.
All right. So the second beast. Verse 5 reads, and there before me was a second beast which looked like a bear. It's your favorite.
It is, because it's just a bear.
It's just a bear.
With ribs in its mouth.
It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. A bear is slower, stronger, and more crushing than a lion.
Okay.
It kind of lopes along,
sure,
whereas a lion pounces, right?
Yeah.
This bear had a voracious appetite for conquest. The second beast, already eating one victim and getting ready to pounce on another, symbolized the Medo-Persian Empire in its greedy conquest.
Okay.
And it replaced Babylon as the dominant world power.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
As for the 3 ribs, the Persians dominated over the Medes in their relationship. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next chapter, but most think that the 3 ribs represented the Persians' great military conquests, which were Babylon, Egypt, and Lydia. I would say Lydia, but I don't know that. I'm not familiar with it.
Got it.
But I like it as a name for a person.
Sure.
Lydia.
Yeah.
So, okay, the third beast.
Yeah.
That would be verse 6. After that I looked, and there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard, and on its back it had 4 wings like those of a bird. This beast had 4 heads, and it was given authority to rule. So the leopard was known for its sudden, unexpected attacks, and this one especially swift because of its 4 wings, and was clever because it had 4 heads.
Got it.
So the third beast represented the swift conquest by Alexander the Great and the spread of the Greek Empire. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in next chapter too.
So it kind of speaks to his military greatness that he was like, you know, like speaks to his way, the way he did it. And so that's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah. And I kind of appreciated this breakdown.
Yeah.
Alexander the Great quickly conquered the civilized world by age 28. In just 12 years, he had subdued part of Europe and all of Asia.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, but then he died all of a sudden, and on his death, his empire was divided into 4 parts, which is, again, why there's 4 heads.
Sure.
Specifically, the 4 heads were Cassander, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy, who all inherited Alexander's domain.
Got it.
Okay?
Yeah.
So there's those guys.
Okay.
And the 4th beast, this one was like the weird one.
Yes.
Okay?
With the weirdest. And
Yeah. All right. So verse 7 reads, after that, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was a 4th beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the former beasts, and it had 10 horns. Now, first of all, we kind of commented that this reminds us of the statue that was in King Nebuchadnezzar's vision.
Yeah, a little bit.
His dream or whatever.
Sure.
Like, it does have some resemblance to it with the 10 toes and the iron and stuff.
Yeah.
So we are talking about a comparison of common ideas here.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The 4th beast with 10 horns and 1 conspicuous little horn was so terribly dreadful that it was beyond description, and it symbolized the brutal, all-conquering Rome. Okay.
Okay.
So the Roman Empire was the final world-dominating power before the rise of Christianity.
Right.
And we kind of knew that, but like I hadn't really understood it in those terms.
Well, and more than that, Rome actually, in the end, kind of solidified the rise of Christianity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they played a big part in that.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a big deal, like you said.
Yeah.
Now, some suggest that the 10 horns on this creature were actually 2 5-pointed antlers rather than 10 separate horns, which that would make more sense, but whatever. Regardless, from the many kingdoms, 10 horns brought together in the Roman Empire, because, you know, they conquered and conglomerated everybody that they rolled over.
Right.
One leader, a little horn. So that's like one little horn grew. That emerged as more ruthless than all the others. And he murdered those who opposed him and established himself as a cruel, unchallengeable dictator, oppressing and persecuting even the saints.
And this is, I'm thinking, what you were talking about when we were in the chapters, that guy...
Antiochus?
Yes. Is that referring to him, maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Antiochus Epiphanes.
Got it. Yeah. At least that's what scholars think.
Sure. Yeah. That's what they think they're referring to because of his cruelty. We'll get into that a little bit more as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Daniel then had a vision. What was I saying? Yeah. Sorry. I had scrolled and I want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Yeah.
Daniel then had a vision of the fiery chariot throne of God upon which sat the Ancient of Days.
Yeah, that was a little confusing to me because it seemed like it was God, But why are we referring to him as the Ancient of Days?
Right. And then also, we're talking about that. And all of a sudden in the same chapter, we're talking about the future. Right. And that's just weird. Like the far distant future.
Really confusing.
Yeah. So this was definitely God, though, or, we all think, scholars, that is, I'm not a scholar, but scholars all are pretty sure, that was God who judged the beasts. Okay. Okay. And the little horn dictator made such claims to power that God could tolerate him no longer. His day of judgment would come, and the 3 previous kingdoms were merely overthrown, right? The ones that we talked about before, they were, quote unquote, merely overthrown. Yeah. They were taken over rather than wiped out. But this 4th kingdom, under the absolute rule of its arrogant dictator, is going to be completely and mercilessly destroyed.
But that's not what happened, though. Rome definitely, it was still in power after Christianity started.
But again, this is in the distant future, so they may not be talking about Rome of then. Okay. They might be talking about a Rome to come. Yeah, I know. I'm not trying to defend it. I'm trying to explain how it is sometimes interpreted for right or wrong by apologists and scholars separately and together today.
I really hate the idea that because the Bible got it wrong, we have to reinterpret, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's the word of God to these people.
It couldn't be wrong. It has to be just it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, yeah. No, but I mean, if you, again, this is one of those instances where if you take the scholars at their word for what they've determined these things probably meant, then it sounds like what we're talking about is the current Roman Empire, right?
Now, what they could be saying too is the other empires were all attacked from outside, whereas Rome crumbled from within. Sure. So that could be. You could say that, okay, that prophecy did come true.
Right.
So
I guess
either it did come true in the way that I just said, or it hasn't happened yet and it's something to come in the future. We'll see. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. Okay.
So all right. There's that. Now, in place of this anti-God kingdom, a new kingdom will be set up. One that is different from all that has gone before. Yeah. Okay. It's going to be set up not by a beast-like figure, but by a man-like figure, often assumed to be a coming Messiah. Okay. And that's where Jesus comes in. Right. Yeah. This quote-unquote Son of Man is going to be given, or was given, authority, glory, and a kingdom that would never be destroyed. And so he exercised dominion over the earth. Right? Okay. And I'm like, did you mean over that little area of that little continent? Because that didn't happen. Yeah. One of God's heavenly servants turns to Daniel at this point and explains to Daniel the meaning of the vision.
There's one of those 10,000 by 10,000 or whatever.
Yeah. Well, okay, so the Ancient of Days is sitting on his throne, and he's surrounded by thousands, and those are his celestial beings, his angels or whatever. Sure. The thousands of thousands that are beyond there, those are all of his followers.
Got it.
Okay. Okay. So I forgot to say that.
His followers, but are they celestial or?
Let's not talk about that. That was never stated. I don't know.
Got it.
Let's not talk about that.
All right.
Just people or beings that follow God, but they're not angels or celestial beings.
Okay.
Right. Yes. Right. Yes. So the little horn, aka the king, will challenge 3 of the original 10 kings, speak against God, oppress the saints, and attempt to change times and laws. Yeah. After a period of distress and oppression, the dominion of the little horn will be taken away, and the final judgment will result in the destruction of this little horn's power, and God's kingdom on earth will last forever.
That's amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what happened in chapter 7. And I'm still confused, but at least I have a little bit better understanding.
Sure.
Right?
I guess.
I mean.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it's better than the way it was portrayed in the book, in the Bible. So, yeah.
So let's move on to chapter 8 and see if we can make some sense of this.
Okay.
This is where we get into Antiochus and the Antichrist.
Got it.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is like going to be getting more into some future stuff.
Got it.
Okay. So this was about Daniel's vision of the ram and the goat.
Yeah, the unigoat and then the quadrigoat.
Yes,
which
exactly.
is the same goat because it grew different horns.
Different horns. Yeah. Daniel's vision here is of a 2-horned ram destroyed by a 1-horned he-goat.
Right.
Referring to the Persian and Grecian monarchies.
Okay.
So we're going back a little ways.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is followed by the history of the, quote, little horn, which is thought by many, as you said, to represent the Greek king Antiochus Epiphanes as he outlawed many Jewish customs. And we talked about some of those last time, and there was math involved or something where he had stopped them from being able to sacrifice during their mornings and nights. And he stopped them from being able to do a lot of the customs that they did.
Sure.
So he's ucky.
Right.
Okay. And that was about, his program sparked a popular uprising, which led to the retaking of Jerusalem and the temple by Judas Maccabeus in 164 BCE.
Okay.
Okay, so we're not quite there yet because we haven't reached the Maccabees.
Right.
But that's a thing that happens during this dream or whatever.
But it strikes me that, what we talked about early on with regard to the time frame that Daniel was written in mostly, or at least brought together and added to.
Yes.
Would have been the 200 BCE time frame, right? And if this Maccabee movement happened in 164, the idea that they're doing propaganda
already brewing.
The idea that they're building a propaganda towards for their god is it makes a lot of sense that like they're getting ready to rebel against this,
Antiochus.
Yeah. So they're trying to build unity. They're trying to build strength and to bring everybody together behind their god.
Which is how they were able to do the uprising.
Right.
Exactly.
It makes a lot of fucking sense.
Yep.
And so I just...
Once again, political machinations, not religion.
I think really you could take everything that's happened in the Bible with regard to history and you could chalk it all up to political intrigue. Yeah. That's really what it all boils down to.
Basically, the Bible is a huge history book of political intrigue, and you just need to take all of the God out of it, all of the magic, and just talk about this is what the people believed at the time, and this is how the leaders utilized that.
No, I think it would be really interesting to take the studies that people have done around the Bible and take the stories from the Bible and put them together in a way that kind of describes the political machinations that are going on in that time frame, right?
Exactly.
Because it really, to me, it reads very political.
Yeah.
And I know someone who's reading this from the God perspective is not going to see that because they're seeing God, they're not seeing the politics.
Right.
But to me, someone who is interested in history, it comes right through.
In history and politics.
Yeah,
definitely. And I'm interested in history and sociology. So when you explain it, I'm like, oh, that tracks. So, yeah, I'm loving this.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some history now, okay?
Okay.
All right, we're going back a little bit. Okay, I just rewound back to 550 BCE.
Okay. All right.
Though Babylon was still the dominant power in the region, Persia had begun to challenge it. Okay.
Yeah.
And we know what happens there, but
sure.
We're pretending here for a minute that we don't know.
Yeah.
The significant event of 550 BCE was Persia's conquest of the formerly great kingdom of Media. Okay. And we know that as well. Okay. Then in 539 BCE, the combined armies of Persia and Media conquered Babylon. And again, we saw that coming because we knew it.
Right.
This combined Medo-Persian power was pictured in the vision as a ram, one of whose horns, Persia, was higher than the other, Media.
Sure. Okay. All right.
Persia ruled till about 333 BCE, when Alexander the Great came from the west and with unbelievable speed overran the Persian Empire.
Got it.
Okay. His Greek empire was symbolized in Daniel's vision as a goat, with Alexander as the large horn between the goat's eyes.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like the last chapter was telling us some of this history, and now this chapter is telling us more, but we had to overlap Right. What we already knew.
And we're supposed to pretend like Daniel wrote this way back as a prophecy when actually it was written after these things happened.
Exactly. Yep. All right. So at the height of his power, when only 32 years of age, Alexander suddenly died. His empire soon split into 4 sectors, which were the 4 new horns. Okay.
It strikes me also that part of the reason that they might have used such heavy symbolism is because they were writing it with, afterthought, right? They're writing this after they already know about these events. So they're like, how can we make this sound like a vision that somebody had prior to this?
Right.
And so they, how it's a try hard, like they tried too hard.
Yeah. They added like too much symbolism, too many animals.
That's kind of how it
to make it
reads,
seem more magical.
Yeah.
So one of these sectors, I said that Alexander's empire split into 4.
Right.
So one of these sectors was centered on Syria. From this sector, there arose many years later a king, a little horn, who attacked God's people and even God himself. This king was Antiochus Epiphanes.
Right.
And he stopped the regular sacrifices that the Jews offered each morning and evening. He set up Greek idols and a heathen altar in their holy temple.
Okay.
And he forced the Jews to carry out practices that he knew their law prohibited. So he was a real shit.
Sure.
This attack,
but I mean, it's not uncommon. Like, that's not an uncommon practice in those days.
Yeah, he was no more of a shit than any of the other conquerors.
Sure. Right.
And let's be clear, they were all conquerors. They all fought over land and used religion to justify their fight over land.
Even the Israelites, if you were not a full, fledged, Israelite and worshipped the way they worshipped, you were a second-class citizen or a slave. So I mean, there was a heavy incentive to join or not be part of the society.
Well, that, and I mean, the whole time that they were, trying to conquer their own land and drive out the quote-unquote Canaanites, right? Yeah, they were totally doing a land grab.
People that did not believe the same things they believed.
Right. And they were doing a land grab and using religion to justify it.
I just wanted to make sure I said it because, we're reading these texts from a very one-sided perspective.
Sure.
Right? And it's hard to, step back from that when you're reading that take to examine, okay, well, wait, they did this earlier and these people had these views and this, you have to be able to step into other people's shoes to see the whole picture.
Yeah, I don't think that Antiochus was like a complete shit more so than others.
Right.
He was, there were some conquerors that were less of a shit than he was.
Definitely.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I mean, Cyrus was obviously better. And, there's definitely examples where people were better.
Exactly.
But I'm just saying that things like this were not completely uncommon.
No.
That's all.
No. So this attack on the Jewish religion lasted more than 3 years, or 1,150 days, or 2,300 morning and evening sacrifices.
Got it.
Yeah. And I'm laughing because, and you're laughing because we had got into a slight tiff over the math.
I misunderstood how you had read it because it was like...
The math was also confusing.
Yeah.
So that happened. 3 years or so, whatever. Cruel, cunning, arrogant, and powerful Antiochus would slaughter the Jews, defile the temple, and blaspheme against God.
Okay.
The rule of Antiochus came to an end in 165 BCE. So we've caught up to where we were now.
Got it, yeah.
Okay. When the Jews regained control of their temple, and then they cleansed and rededicated it to the holy worship of God. Okay. Now, there are a few other interpretations of the little horn that say, no, it wasn't Antiochus Epiphanes. Some believe the little horn represents a future powerful world leader, possibly even the Antichrist.
Got it.
Okay. And then others view the little horn as symbolizing a collection of evil forces rather than any specific or literal individual.
Okay.
So those are some of the other thoughts out there.
I'm sure these are thoughts that are more modern because, we can see what this would have represented if we look at history.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't work out correctly, that's when you have to rewrite what you're thinking.
Yeah.
So
I'm content with thinking that it was Antiochus because
as am I.
He fits the shoe.
It makes sense based on when they were writing it. It makes sense based on a lot of things.
Based on what he did.
Yeah.
You know?
So to me, that holds the most weight.
Right. All right, so that's chapter 8. I feel a little bit better about that. There were so many horns and horns and horns. I was like not getting all of the history. Also, I didn't understand that chapter 8 kind of did a rewind and recovered some of the same history that was already covered in chapter 7.
Right.
So, like, I need things to be laid out side by side.
Yeah.
So that is cleared up a little bit better for me.
For sure.
All right, so let's get into chapter 9.
Okay.
All right, so Daniel does some serious math and figures out when something important is going to happen. Okay?
Yeah.
This part of the Bible is really important for understanding later parts of the Bible.
Was this someone with the 70 weeks that was 70 years that was 62 days
I think
and
so.
35 seconds and
I think
whatever?
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So this part of the Bible is really important for understanding later parts of the Bible, especially when we get into the New Testament. Okay? Even though this part was not written for a New Testament audience, when we get into the New Testament,
they make it work.
We have to know where the New Testament drew its material from.
Course.
And this is one of them.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay.
So just putting it out there that we need to pay attention because this will come back.
I guess.
I mean...
No, I know.
They will make it come back.
I get it. I just don't buy it. That's all.
No. I'm not saying that this stuff happens in the New Testament.
Right.
What I'm saying is that when we're studying the New Testament, they're going to quote some of this shit.
I understand. I'm just saying, like, even on the basis of just reading this chapter, it's so
annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't, we don't even have to get in the New Testament before I'm like, no, this is stupid.
Yeah. We can't even just like read it for what it is. We have to read it knowing that at some point it's going to be parsed and abused, basically.
Right.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
Because it has its own different meaning and understanding,
Yeah.
So Daniel begins this chapter by confessing the sins of the Israelites, including himself. Remember that? He's like, God, you're so great. We suck so hard.
Yeah.
We're the worst, the absolute worst. Sorry. Please forgive us.
Sure.
He acknowledges the nation's disobedience to God's law and the subsequent judgment that they have faced. And then he asks for God's mercy and the restoration of Jerusalem.
Okay. Yep.
In response to Daniel's prayer, an angel reveals a prophecy about the future of Israel. This prophecy is centered around the concept of 70 weeks. So that's where we get into that.
This is where it starts getting a little weird.
No, it was already a little weird.
Yeah.
This is where it starts getting a lot weird. Yeah. While the exact meaning of, quote, a week in this context is debated, it's assumed that it generally refers to a period of 7 years.
But why?
So we're not just saying 1 year.
Yeah.
We're not saying that 1 week is 1 year. We're saying that 1 week is 7 years.
No, I got it.
So
I get it.
Each day of the week is 1 year.
But why not just say that?
It's a week of years is what they're saying. Because it was more poetic or something. I don't fucking know.
All right, whatever. I feel like this is just some bullshit added in after the fact, kind of.
I mean, okay, but the way it read was very confusing when they were like a week of weeks of days. Like, even just by itself, it's confusing.
I think I commented at the time. I feel like it was muddled because they didn't have an exact answer.
Sure.
Right? Like what they're trying to do here, they were trying to muddy the water so that it could be interpreted in any number of ways.
Sure. And I don't disagree with that.
So that's just how I feel about it.
Sure. The prophecy outlines a timeline of events leading up to the coming of a Messiah.
Okay.
And that's where I said that sometimes they bend the math real hard to make it line up with when Jesus came.
Yeah. Okay. I got it.
It speaks of the rebuilding of Jerusalem, the coming of an anointed one, and a period of great tribulation.
Sure.
This prophecy has been a subject of intense study and interpretation for centuries. So me and you sitting here at this table ain't going to figure it out.
No, but if I recall correctly, we got to the end of that chapter and there's something that was said about what was going to happen after the anointed one shows up, and it's nothing that happened.
Right.
So like even in the prophecy that they worked so hard to make happen and attribute to Jesus, right? The actual prophecy itself doesn't fully hit home with regard to what it did.
Right, but that just means it's still to come.
But how can you have it come true and also still to come?
The same people that are saying that it came true, they are not the same people that are saying it's still yet to come.
Okay, but if it didn't come, then that means Jesus didn't come.
Right. No, that's not true.
Okay.
The Jewish people do not believe that this prophecy has been fulfilled yet.
Right. No, I get that.
There's that.
Right. So, but the Christians do believe that this is the fulfillment of that prophecy, right? Mm-hmm. So, therefore, that wrongness of what happened when Jesus did come, according to the Bible, should be enough to say that prophecy was false. But it's not.
It's not.
And I don't remember exactly what it was because it's been a few days since we read it. But I do remember commenting on it at the time. So
I'm going to put a pin in it for now, only because A, we haven't got there yet.
Sure.
And B, because we haven't got there yet, I have not looked into the history and stuff of that time to be able to form a cohesive and cogent argument.
Got it. Well, and I'm sure we'll be, This is Jesus. Like, this is stuff about Jesus that we're going to be talking about later.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll come back to this
we will.
Quite a bit.
We will. So. Yeah. All right. So this prophecy, blah, 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 blah. Many scholars believe it provides a framework for understanding key events in biblical history and prophecy.
Okay.
The prophecy begins with a directive to rebuild Jerusalem and its walls. And some people claim this historical event took place after the Babylonian captivity because they did rejoin and they did rebuild
and that
Jerusalem.
Makes some sense. Yeah, sure. Okay.
A period is specified for the appearance of, quote, an anointed one, the Messiah.
Right.
This is when many believe Jesus Christ appears. Yeah. There's a reference to a cut-off Messiah, which is often interpreted as Jesus's crucifixion because he was cut off. His life was cut off from earth.
Right.
A period of great tribulation or desolation is foretold, which aligns with other biblical descriptions of the end times. These passages often paint a picture of a period of intense suffering, upheaval, and judgment. Some key biblical references can be found in Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel from the Old Testament, and Matthew and Revelation from the New Testament.
And I think that was like the part that, like, this Messiah, if we're to trust Christianity's take on this, right? Mm-hmm. After the Messiah came, there's supposed to be this period of, bad, right? Or whatever. The whole end times things is going to be happening, right?
Yeah.
Are we? And I guess that Christians just believe that it's ongoing until it ends. I don't really know. Like, this whole period that we're in since Jesus is apparently all that. I don't know.
Again, it's a good question, but I'm putting a pin in it because we're not there yet.
I got it.
No, I'm not telling you not to ask these questions. I'm just saying, yep, that's a good question.
Right.
Maybe we'll read a better answer or confirmation later. Sure. The prophecy concludes with the confirmation of a covenant with many for 1 week. So I don't know what that means, but that's a thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, 1 week can be 7 years.
Possibly, maybe 70 years, maybe 700 years.
Yeah,
maybe
who fucking knows?
7,000. I don't know.
Who knows? So that's chapter 9. Still really confusing, but at least I understand the words a little bit better.
Sure.
All right, so we're going to get into Daniel chapter 10. And again, this is the beginning of his final vision. Okay?
Yeah.
So Daniel has a super scary encounter with a very bright angel.
Yeah.
This is a pivotal moment in the book in that it shifts the narrative from cryptic visions, like dream things, to a direct interaction between Daniel and a heavenly being.
Right.
Okay? Even though he did speak to another guy in one of his visions.
Yeah.
This is like...
in one of his dreams.
Yeah, in one of his dream vision things. Yeah. This is like a waking vision. Like, dude is in his room talking to him.
But apparently there was other people there that didn't see what he saw.
Right.
So it was just him, but they were scared of something, so...
yeah, I don't know. The whole thing is a little like... The angel tells Daniel that he's been sent to help God's people and to explain some of the crazy shit that Daniel has seen. Okay? Daniel spends 3 weeks in intense prayer and fasting, seeking understanding of the visions that he's received. Mm-hmm. This period of spiritual preparation underscores that he understands the importance of the encounter to come.
Or that he's nuts.
Right. One or the other.
Yeah.
He's either a religious fanatic or he really did see an angel, and
right.
I know which one I believe.
I mean, if you went through a fasting period of 3 weeks, you might just be seeing visions because you went through the fasting period of 3 weeks. You know?
I might be hungry.
Right?
I might eat your head off.
Yeah.
An extraordinary being described as a man clothed in linen appears to Daniel by the Tigris River. This figure, often interpreted as an angel or a celestial being, tells Daniel that he's been sent to help God's people and to explain some of the crazy shit that he's seen, which I already said.
Right.
Daniel, he's filled with fear and weakness, but the being reassures Daniel and strengthens him, like gives him a power up, and prepares him to receive the message.
Okay.
Yep. This chapter is a change from the symbolic language of the previous chapters to a more direct form of divine communication.
Yeah.
Setting the stage for the detailed prophecies and historical insights that follow in the coming chapters. Now, I did not even get into the fact that this guy that came to talk to him had been held up for a week.
Right, that was crazy.
That was crazy.
No, it was 3 weeks, wasn't it?
However long.
Yeah.
He was like, he couldn't get away.
Right.
And then Michael had to come save him. I thought that because we're starting a new vision.
We'll just kind of wait to see how this pans out.
Yeah. And then I will get more into that next weekend.
Right.
To see if we've learned more by then.
Yeah, because the idea that a celestial being can be detained
by evil spirits or some shit.
Right. And the fact that this celestial being and Michael are the only two that are on their side or something.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is really weird what it's leading into.
Like it really gets out of the historical things that are happening and the kingdoms, like talking about who conquered whom and which kingdoms are in charge. And like it gets away from all of the political intrigue and it just starts going off into sci-fi land.
Yeah.
And I can't with that.
It strikes me that we're reading through this these prophecies, these visions, these dreams, and I'm using the word weird a lot. Mm-hmm. I think I need to get out a thesaurus because I'm like the amount of times that I've said weird just even in this episode is bothering me because I hear myself saying it and I'm like, I need to come up with a new word for that because
peculiar, strange, odd,
but
bizarre.
I need like a list in front of me so I can just pick from it. Like okay this time it's going to be that.
I think I'm going to start using bizarre because I like that one a lot.
Sure, that's a good one.
And it does describe the right, which is probably why the word weird is stuck in your head because that's the word in the general zeitgeist currently.
That's true. That is very true. That is very true.
Not totally your fault.
Right. So did you have anything else for us or that where we're kind of leaving off with this today?
I don't have anything else. I put a pin in several of your questions and then I put a to be continued on the last one. So
right.
I don't know that I really answered any questions. I still am confused about what's happening. I don't feel confident. I could not discuss this with a Christian and come away feeling like that I had held my own in a conversation because I don't feel like a Christian could
hold their own,
but they would think that they would.
Sure, there's a lot of things that you can just either you can make up your own meaning for, right? So like anybody can have a conversation about this and mean what they mean, but it doesn't necessarily mean what it means,
right? Whereas I don't necessarily require a definitive description, but I want something to make sense, like. You don't have to tell me that was definitely Antiochus that they were talking about.
Sure.
But to say, oh, yeah, that fits. That's a puzzle piece that fits. That was probably Antiochus.
Right.
I'm okay
based
with
on
that.
XYZ information, this makes sense. Yeah. Right.
I'm also prepared for new information to come to light to say, oh, that wasn't Antiochus after all.
Definitely.
For all intents and purposes, though, sure, I agree that you're right. That's probably Antiochus.
Right. So is that
that's it?
Okay. So I would like to say this real quick here. I don't ask for this a lot lately. We've kind of got our new intro and everything's kind of like very baked in the way we do things on our podcast. But I really could use your guys' help. We could, if you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere that lets you rate our podcast, please go there now and give us a 5-star review. We definitely. It helps us out more than you could imagine, and we really could use some of that help right now to boost listenership, to get people more, to get ourselves seen out there a little bit more.
It juices the logarithm or algorithm.
Yeah. And then just one more note that I do want to mention here. If anybody is going to be available on September the 7th, anywhere near Kentucky, Cincinnati, because it's going to be in Covington, there is the Kentucky Free Thought Convention coming up on that day. And I think it's $45 to get in. We'll be there. Seth Andrews will be there. And there'll be some other speakers there as well. Definitely make a point to head out there. Head to their website, just look up Kentucky Free Thought Convention, or head to our website and go to the events page, and we've got a link to it directly from there. And you can come there and visit us while we're sitting at our booth.
I was just going to say, if y'all do end up showing up, please stop by and let us see you.
Yes. Yeah, we definitely want to talk to you.
Yeah, that would totally fucking make our day.
It really would. It really would. That being said, I think that's all we've got for today.
Yes.
So we will be back in a little bit here. We're doing this we're catching up this today. Mm-hmm. So we're going to finish up our
Patreon.
Yeah, so it's a part 2 we're doing for the
Project 2025.
Correct. And then I will get the weekly wrap up out today, and then we'll be back on Monday
Which is tomorrow. With Daniel chapter 11.
All right. We'll see you then.
Okie dokie. Bye.